It ain't Friday, but Friday we're going to be off in Portland visiting our kids and family and my mother-in-law and brother-in-law and whatnot. So we're doing Brunch with Bernie today, in fact, right now. So get your questions ready for Senator Bernie Sanders. Our national town hall meeting begins now with Senator Bernie Sanders. Senator Sanders, welcome.
Great to be with you, Tom.
Great to have you.
Happy Thanksgiving to all of the listeners.
Indeed. So what's on your mind, sir?
We have been focusing of late on this whole issue of the fiscal cliff and deficit reduction. And the issue here is that the American people have got to stand up and stand up really strong to take on the big money interests in Washington. And what the American people have got to say is, you know what? The middle class and working families are already experiencing a whole lot of austerity. Unemployment is very, very high. Wages have gone down. People are having a hard time paying their bills, paying for health insurance. And as we go forward to a deficit reduction, it has got to be the people on top, the top 2% who are doing phenomenally well and who are now paying a low effective tax rate. It has got to be the large corporations, profitable corporations, 1/4 of which, Tom, pay nothing in taxes. It has got to be the Defense Department right now, which is bloated and which can be cut. That is the direction in which we have got to go if we're serious about doing deficit reduction in a way that is fair. Now, what troubles me very much is right now you have virtually all of the Republicans standing there saying, we've got to cut Social Security. We've got to cut Medicare. We've got to cut Medicaid. We have to cut education. And that's the only way we can do deficit reduction. And meanwhile, they continue to defend extending Bush's tax breaks for the wealthiest people in this country for another 10 years. That's $1 trillion that we can save. They want to continue the absurdity of having the United States government lose about $100 billion a year because corporations and wealthy people are stashing their money in the Cayman Islands, Bermuda, and other tax havens. So what we are looking at right now is a very fundamental and significant issue. Do we balance the budget and move to a deficit reduction in a way that is fair, which asks the people on top who are doing very, very well, large corporations that are doing very, very well, to start paying their fair share of taxes? Or do we really attack programs that millions and millions of people desperately depend upon, especially in the midst of this terrible, terrible recession? So that's an issue that I've been working very hard on. Second of all, I worry very much, Tom, about a recent report that didn't get quite the attention that it deserved to get, I think, dealing with the warming of the planet. Mm. And what this report done by some of the leading scientists in the world suggests that if we continue going our merry old way with fossil fuels and greenhouse gas emissions, we may be looking in the year 2100, not that far away from here, at a planet which is some 8 degrees warmer than it is today, 8 degrees warmer. And if that happens, what these scientists are telling us is that we're going to have more severe Hurricane Sandys. They're going to occur more often. We're going to have more drought. We are going to have more flooding. And it is really very questionable what this planet will look like if we don't get our act together. So we are working on legislation right now which will which will allow us to go forward in a very significant way to cut greenhouse gas emissions, move away from fossil fuels, move to energy efficiency, move to sustainable energy. And by the way, when you do all of those things, you're going to create a whole lot of jobs in this country. Mm. And when we talk about what's going on in Washington, and a whole lot of discussion takes place on deficit reduction, which is an important issue, no question, we cannot forget that as we speak, some 23 million Americans are either unemployed or underemployed. We cannot forget that millions and millions of our neighbors are working longer hours for lower wages. Median family income has gone down significantly in the last 10 years. People are struggling. So I know that everyone's focused in the media on deficit reduction. Well, I think we should also focus on the need to create the millions of jobs that this economy desperately needs. And we can do that most significantly, not only by transforming our energy system, but also by rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure, roads, bridges, airports, water systems, wastewater plants, rail. And when you do that, you not only create jobs, you make our country more productive and more internationally competitive. So we cannot lose track of the job crisis in the United States of America. Of immediate concern, you and I have talked about this in the past, is the status of the Postal Service. And I know we have a lot of folks who listen to this program who are concerned about the Postal Service. We've heard a lot of questions that people have. We did a pretty good job in the Senate in fending off some of the disastrous cuts that the Postmaster General wanted to implement, which would have been half of the postal processing plants in America and some 15,000 rural post offices. But I'm afraid our Republican friends are now beginning to negotiate with some Democrats, and we're going to intervene on that issue because I want to do everything I can to protect the Postal Service, not see massive layoffs there and a lower quality of service for the American people. So those are some of the issues, Tom, that are on my agenda as we head into the lame duck session and in a month and a half into the new session.
Bernie, it was basically on Ronald Reagan's watch that we stopped maintaining our infrastructure. He moved trillions of dollars into Star Wars and the military-industrial complex. The Republicans control the House of Representatives. Any thoughts on how the agenda that you just laid out can get through that?
Well, I'll tell you, Tom, and that is really the $64 question. We'll have better luck in the Senate, and as I think many listeners know, that as a result of this election on November 6th, Democrats actually won 2 more seats in the Senate, including some pretty progressive people. We're looking forward to seeing Elizabeth Warren now in the Senate, Tammy Baldwin, Mazie Hirono, and others, new members coming into the Senate who are going to be quite progressive. What I think in terms of dealing with the Republicans in the House who have lost a few seats there and maybe have a little bit woken up a little bit to understanding that the American people are not supportive of right-wing extremist agendas, I think the way to deal with that is not sitting for hours in long negotiations in Capitol Hill. I think that the President, members of the Senate, members of the House have got to get out to the American people. Because, Tom, the position of the Republicans, this right-wing extremist position of more tax breaks for millionaires and billionaires, ignoring the reality of global warming, continued attacks against women in the gay community, those are not items, those are not ideas that are resonating with the American people. And the way you beat them, frankly, is when millions of people, and I hope people who are listening to this show, get on the telephone and they call up their congressperson or they call up their senator and say, excuse me, you're not going to cut Social Security, you're not going to cut Medicare, and you're not going to cut Medicaid. You're going to have to ask your campaign donors to start paying a little bit more in taxes. But unless we rally the American people, we're going to have some tough sledding.
And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you and Senator Bernie Sanders on the line. Victor in Pittsburgh, Missouri. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes. Hi, Bernie. It's so wonderful to talk to you, and God bless you.
Thank you.
My question is this. I had thought about this. I know there's a whole thing that they're going to go back against forth as far as corporate taxes and stuff like that. When they talk about privatizing, why don't they create, you guys do a whole audit of the commons, what the public commons are, what's owned by the U.S. government, what's owned by the states. And then when they decide to go privatize something, that we go on halvesies with them. When they decide to privatize, partially privatize, or fully privatize, that they pay half of half of their profit goes back to the government.
Well, that's an interesting idea, Victor, but I think, you want to look at privatization piece by piece. You want to look at it and see what the issue that we're dealing with is. I'm not a great fan of privatization. I remember when I was mayor of the city of Burlington during the 1980s, there were folks who said, well, let's privatize this, let's privatize that. And we costed it out, And we found that actually if you have an efficient government and efficient government services, if you have dedicated public employees who are often decently paid, in the long run, it saves the taxpayers money. I'll give you one example where I think we have to do a whole lot of work, and that is the contracting out that has taken place in Iraq and Afghanistan, where you have people working side by side, one in the U.S. military, paid military wages, and another private contractor paying a whole lot more for doing the same work. So I got to tell you, I'm not a great fan of privatization.
Let's see here. Justin in Woodland Hills, California. Justin, you're on the air, Senator Sanders.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. My question is it's regarding Grover Norquist and his tax pledge he makes everyone sign. Now, the way I understand it, people in Congress sign a pledge to the Constitution to uphold the Constitution. And in the Constitution, it says that Congress has the power to tax. And so when they sign something to a non-elected third-party official, they're basically abdicating part of the constitutional duties. Is there anything we can do regarding that as far as, maybe impeachment or something along those lines? Because they are actually abdicating their duties to the Constitution that they swore an oath to, not to some unelected person.
Well, Justin, obviously I am a very strong opponent of everything that Grover Norquist stands for. And I think it is absurd. In the recent election that I was in, my opponent signed that same pledge. And I think that's totally absurd to say that under no conditions will we raise taxes. I think it's absurd. But the way to beat Grover Norquist is the way that we have begun to do that. And that is to take them on politically and to make it clear to the voters in Missouri or any other state that, yes, if the choice comes down to cutting Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid, or education, or nutrition, or asking the wealthiest people in this country to pay more in taxes, what do you think? And you know what? I don't think there's a state in this country where people will not say, yeah, of course, the wealthy should be asked to pay more in taxes. You beat them politically and explain the issues to the American people. I think that's the most effective way forward.
It's our Brunch with Bernie Hour. Senator Bernie Sanders. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's our Brunch with Bernie Hour. Senator Bernie Sanders. It's on Tuesday. You're not listening to a repeat show. Today is Tuesday before Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving holidays are messing with everybody's schedule. So Bernie has graciously agreed to be on today. Rodney in Chicago Heights, Illinois. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hello, Senator Sanders. God bless you, sir. And my question is, I know you have the resolve, but does the Democratic caucus have the resolve to protect Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security?
Well, Rodney, thank you for asking that question, and that is a question that is very, very much on my mind. And I can tell you there are some members who certainly do have the courage and the determination. There are some, I fear, who do not. And we have got to make all of the Democrats and all of the Republicans an offer they can't refuse. And that is stop protecting the wealthy and large corporations at the expense of working families. When you talk about deficit reduction, there are a couple of issues that have to be raised. Number one, how did we get to where we are today? And the answer is pretty clear. To a significant degree, Bush and his friends, including some of these great deficit hawks, went to war in Iraq and Afghanistan. They didn't pay for that war. Bush and his friends gave huge tax breaks to the wealthy people, didn't offset it. Passed Medicare Part D prescription drugs, didn't pay for it. And then because of the greed and recklessness and illegal behavior on Wall Street, we were driven into this terrible, terrible recession in which so many people continue to hurt today. But among other things, a lot less revenue comes in to the federal government because of a recession. That's why we are in the deficit situation we're in today. And given that reality, and given the reality that we have a totally unequal distribution of wealth and income in America, where the people on top are doing phenomenally well, while the middle class and working class of this country are really hurting, common sense and decency suggest that you do ask the people on top to pay some more in taxes. You know, some people say, well, we need to spread the pain. No, I don't agree with that. You don't throw children off of health insurance or take nutrition programs away from senior citizens and say, well, that's the same as asking a millionaire or a billionaire to pay more in taxes. It is not the same. Many of these people on top have made huge amounts of money in recent years. As Warren Buffett reminds us, their effective tax rates are quite low today. So it is not, equal balance here. You got one group of people, i.e. the middle class and working families, low-income people, they are really hurting. They've been hurting for a while, and they're hurting a lot more because of this Wall Street recession. And you got another group of people doing phenomenally well. Well, who should help us with deficit reduction? And on top of all of that, because, as Rodney just indicated, the Democrats negotiated quite weakly and poorly in the last two budget negotiations, 2010, 2011. You know what happened? Rich didn't pay a nickel more in taxes. In fact, we lowered taxes on the estate tax. Meanwhile, we cut over $900 billion over a 10-year period on programs that will impact ordinary people and children and sick people. So to my mind, Rodney, we have got to buck up every member of the Democratic caucus, and people have got to put pressure on them. Tom, I don't know if you noticed it, but some of the unions now, quite appropriately, are beginning to advertise in states where they think that some of the Democrats might be willing to make unwise compromises, cave in. And I think that's the right thing to do. So we have to buck up all of the Democrats. We have to tell the president that this time, it's not 2010, it's not 2011. He just won a major election. This time he has got to be tough and tell the wealthiest people in this country, you know what? They have to undergo a bit of austerity. It cannot only be working families who are struggling to pay the bills, pay the lights, take care of health care, send their kids to college. We need a little bit of equity in this country, and the people on top are going to have to pay a little bit more in taxes.
Roger in St. Cloud, Florida. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders, for taking my call, and thank you, Mr. Thompson, for what you do. I have a suggestion that all these big Walmarts, it's about the environment, and giant warehouses that take up ungodly amounts of property, why don't we make them all put solar panels on the roof to offset the electricity that they use during the day that would help cut back on coal burning and fossil fuel burning?
Roger, I think that is a great idea. I think that's a great idea. The good news is that we have seen an explosion in the use of solar in the United States. The cost of solar panels has plummeted, and we've got to continue to do that. And if my memory is correct, Roger, actually Walmart in some places is actually doing that. But I think many of these warehouses which have these, which are occupying a whole lot of space, I think it would make enormous amount of sense for them to start putting solar panels on their rooftops.
Bernie, just a minute to the break, a real quick question. The Germans backstop mortgages for people who want to borrow money to put solar panels on their roofs, and then they require the power companies to pay a surcharge that more than covers the cost of the mortgage for the 7 or 10 years of the mortgage. And so there's no government money. There's ultimately no bank money. The banks make a small profit on it. Everybody wins, and Germany has replaced basically the need for 20 nukes. Could we do that in the United States?
Well, we sure could. I mean, I don't know if that's the best plan forward, but there is no question that in a variety of ways, Tom, we can move this country forward towards sustainable energy. And by the way, we want to see those solar panels manufactured here in the United States, putting our people to work rather than in China. But that's certainly a good idea, and there are other ideas out there to accomplish the same goal.
Okay. Senator Bernie Sanders with us. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour on Tuesday, special on Tuesday. So give us a call for Senator Sanders, 866-987-THOM, although all the lines are busy right now. But when one becomes available, that's the number. We'll be right back with more of Senator Bernie Sanders. Welcome back to our Brunch with Bernie hour on Tuesday this week. And Senator Bernie Sanders taking your calls in our national town hall meeting, Brunch with Bernie. Al in Warner Robins, Georgia. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hey, Senator. Thank you for talking to me. I had to get down my phone. I'm on the speakerphone. But my question, I guess, is the Republican Party now, the way that they've performed in this election, I think they're going to be irrelevant in the next, for sure in the next 8 years, if not the next 4 years. Now, and my question was, what do you think about that? I think the Democrat Party is going to be the new center party, and a new, more progressive party will develop as an opposition party. And I think the GOP is going to be marginalized unless they do something to change their stance on abortion and birth control. What are your opinions about that? Thank you, and I'll listen.
Well, thanks very much, Al, for that thoughtful question. And you may be right. I don't know that anyone can make that prediction. I could tell you here in my state of Vermont, just more and more people, including folks who used to be Republicans, look at the Republican Party today and they're saying, wow, what century do these guys live in? Attacks against women's rights that women have struggled for decades. They want to repeal. Their anti-science attitude. I think Marco Rubio was hard-pressed, the senator from Florida, the other day to acknowledge what every scientist in the world knows, that the Earth is somewhat more than 6,000 years old. Their continued defense of billionaires against the needs of working families. I think that is just not a set of principles that resonates with the American people, especially younger people. Now, you raise another issue, and that is, and you're quite right, you refer to the Democratic Party as a centrist party. And you're right, it is. Within the Democratic Party, and I speak as an independent, you have some really strong progressives, but you also have some folks who aren't that far away from being Republicans. And then you raise the question is, if you have an extreme right-wing party and you have a centrist party, there's a huge political gap out there in terms of millions and millions of working families, environmentalists, women who really want somebody to be strong, to take on corporate America, to have the guts to move aggressively with regard to global warming. And it may well be, Al, that you're right, that in that gap will come a progressive type third party. Here in Vermont, we do have a third party which has some, I think 3 out of 30 senators in our state senate, and has a number of people in the House. So that may very well happen. My hope is, though, that in the short term, people will put as much pressure as they can on the Democrats, who just want a huge victory, and say to the president and the Democratic leadership, get rid of your dependence on big money, start standing up for working families, and we can beat the Republicans big time. We can win this deficit reduction fiscal cliff battle, and we can win a number of other important fights as well.
John in Highbridge, New Jersey. You're on the air, Senator Sanders.
Hi, Senator Sanders. Tom, how are you today? Thanks for having me on. Listen, what I wanted to ask was, now we've got Grover Norquist and the rest of these Republicans on the run, and I was wondering, Senator, if you thought it was too soon to really sort of put the stake in the heart of the beast and start forming the Sanders-Warren 2016 campaign and let them know they're in real trouble.
I would donate.
Well, thanks very much, John. I very much look forward to working with Elizabeth Warren. I've known Elizabeth for a number of years. She came to Vermont 3 or 4 years ago to do some town meetings with me. I tried to help her a little bit in the campaign. So we look forward to having her join the Senate and being a very, very strong voice for working families against the abuse that Wall Street, among other institutions, has been rendering the American people. But I think right now we look forward to serving in the Senate and let 2016 take care of itself.
Vi in Donovan, if I'm pronouncing that right, Missouri. You're on the air, Senator Sanders.
That's correct. Good afternoon, Senator. It's truly an honor. Hi, Tom.
Hi.
My question is, Senator, what about reforming the filibuster? That is such We cannot let things go back to the way they were with this filibuster business. And I'll take my answer off the air, Senator. Happy Thanksgiving, all.
Well, thank you very much, Vi, and happy Thanksgiving to you, and thanks for your question. And Vi is exactly correct. I've only been in the Senate one term, 6 years. But what I do know is that historically, the Senate has kind of operated to a large degree on good faith, on kind of, a handshake and gentleman's agreement and all that stuff. That's been broken. It's been broken since Barack Obama has been in the White House. It was broken when Mitch McConnell, who is the Republican leader in the Senate, made it very clear that his top priority was to defeat Obama, make him a one-term president. It was broken when you have hundreds of filibusters requiring 60 votes, when you have all kinds of obstructionism, all kinds of holds, making it incredibly difficult to get judges appointed, even when they came out of the Judiciary Committee with almost unanimous agreement. It was very clear. Anybody who objectively looks at what's happened in the Senate since Barack Obama has been president understands absolutely a major pattern of obstructionism. And Vi is right. We need to do something about it. So what I would tell you that a number of us, Senator Jeff Merkley of Oregon, Tom Udall of New Mexico, and others, and I are looking at various options. You will know what happens, quite literally, on the first day that the Senate comes back into business, because that is the day you have to determine the rules of the Senate, and that is the day that we are going to go forward with filibuster reform. Can we get the 51 votes that we need? I certainly hope that we can, and some folks are working pretty hard to make that happen. And there are a variety of ideas out there about what filibuster reform means. But bottom line is, you just cannot have a minority running the United States Senate and obstructing what the majority want.
Jim in Las Vegas, Nevada. You're on the air with Senator Sanders. Jim?
Hello?
Yeah, you're on the air, Jim.
Thom and Senator, sorry. My parents and other educated elderly people that I know seem to be convinced that when Obamacare or Affordable Care Act goes into effect, that they will lose their Medicare. Is that true? That cannot be true, is it?
No, it is not true. Period. It is not true. There were no cuts to the benefits in Medicare as a result of Obamacare. What was done and what should be done, and Jim, it's important for all of us to understand this. Not only is the United States the only nation in the industrialized world that does not guarantee health care to all people as a right, but equally important, we are the nation that spends far, far more per person on health care than does any other nation, almost twice as much. So what some of us want to do is make Medicare and Medicaid more efficient, get the profiteering out of it, get the bureaucracy out of it, improve electronic records and other mechanisms that make the system more efficient. But Obamacare, tell your mom, Jim, Obamacare did not cut 1 penny in benefits for seniors.
Okay. Jim in Indian Head, Pennsylvania. You're on the air with Senator Sanders. Jim, you're on the air with Bernie. Jim's not there. Okay. Peter in New York, New York. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Good afternoon, Senator. Good afternoon, Mr. Hartmann. Senator, what do you think of letting the Bush tax cuts expire, then have it suggested to the public that they pay current taxes or new taxes at the old current rate, and promise them that when they elect a Democratic Congress with both houses majority, including more than 60 senators from the party, they be given a tax forgiveness and amnesty by the president and the Democratic Congress. Is that legal? Is it feasible?
Well,
is it desirable?
I think it's legal, but I don't know how feasible it is, and it's a bit complicated. And one of the things about politics, Peter, you don't want to get too complicated. What I do think is we have got to be very aggressive this time The Democrats have got to tell the Republicans, sorry, yes, we caved in 2010, we caved in 2011, we ain't caving in right now. And right now it is your friends, the millionaires and the billionaires and the large corporations, who are going to have to start paying your fair share rather than just working families. Now, if that agreement cannot be reached, Peter, as you know, what happens is all of Bush's tax breaks expire for the wealthy and for the middle class. If that happens, if an agreement cannot be reached, and that happens, what will happen, I am 100% confident, is that in the next session, certainly in the Senate, what we will do, first week back for sure, is pass legislation to restore those tax breaks to the middle class. And by definition, forcing the upper income people, the people making more than $250,000 to pay at the old rates, over 39%.
Senator Bernie Sanders with us. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour, 3 days early here on Tuesday. We'll be back with more of your calls for Senator Sanders in our National Town Hall meeting. Brunch with Bernie.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
You can drop into our live chat room at ThomHartmann.com. You can visit Bernie's website at sanders.senate.gov. Sign up for his newsletter. Welcome back. Jack, watching us on Free Speech TV in Corvallis, Oregon. You're on the air with Senator Bernie Sanders.
Hello. My wife and I supported your campaign, Senator Sanders, because we feel that you represent us far better than almost anybody in Congress.
Thank you very much, Jack.
And I just wanted to bring up the issue about the voting problems and the suppression and long lines and so on. And an obvious solution, I think, is for everyone to adopt the system we have in Oregon, which is voting by mail or drop box. It works beautifully. There are no problems that as people often argue against the system, they suggest different kinds of problems. We have no problem, no waiting in lines, no fraud, no suppression. We have 2 weeks to study the issues and mark our ballots in our own homes. What do you think of that?
Well, I think, Jack, you make a great point. And I think Oregon, in a number of areas, has been a national leader. And it sounds like, in terms of voting rights, you have done it again. So I think that is certainly one option that we have got to look at. But what I can tell you is that it is absolutely unacceptable and heartbreaking and un-American to be looking, as we did a few weeks ago, at these outrageously long lines in Florida, which just reminded me of not a third world country, a fourth world country, where democracy perhaps had just been initiated. To have people waiting on lines for 5, 8, 9 hours in the United States of America is total nonsense and not acceptable and has to be changed. So to answer your question, Jack, the whole issue of campaign finance and electoral reform has got to be very high up in the congressional agenda. And that means looking at what Oregon is doing, looking at what other states are doing, and basically saying that in the United States of America, everybody has the constitutional right to vote, to know their vote is counted appropriately, and they don't have to wait online for hours to do that. Furthermore, when we talk about elections, we have to, again, get back to work. And I'm happy to see that we have more and more states on board the issue of overturning the disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision. In my view, even if we are successful in doing that, doesn't solve all of our problems. We can still have big money playing a huge role in the political process. We've got to move to public funding of elections. So there are a lot of issues out there in terms of elections, making sure they're fair, no voter suppression, encouraging people to vote, not discouraging them, and making sure that it's not just big money that wins elections, but ordinary people and the ideas advocated by the middle class.
Bernie, a little less than a minute to the break. Do you think that there's a chance that this can be done legislatively, or do we need a constitutional amendment to say we have a right to vote?
I think it can be done legislatively. I think in areas like Citizens United, we may be able to attract some money because some support from Republicans. Because some of these guys were hit by secret money. And I think across the board, people understand that it is total nonsense when a handful of billionaires can play such a huge role in an American election.
Well said. Senator Bernie Sanders with us, our Brunch with Bernie hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Back with more of your calls for Senator Sanders. Check out his website at sanders.senate.gov. 10 minutes before the hour.
Thom Hartmann.
Well handled, sir. Well handled.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour on Tuesday. David in, is it Kaneohe, Hawaii?
Kaneohe, Hawaii.
Kaneohe. Thank you, Hawaii.
Aloha.
You're on the air with, aloha. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Okay. Well, for the Democrats to take back the House in 2014, maybe it would help to attack the Republicans and especially the Tea Partiers on one of their main strengths, which is they present themselves as defenders of the free market. So how about if Democrats become the party of the true free market? And that means no externalizing of costs like pollution, no socializing of losses, no subsidies to oil companies, no monopolies or cartels. COE pay is tied to their true value instead of what their cronies on the board give them. It means information is freely available to everyone, so no inside trading in the House of Representatives, etc.
Well, David, thank you very much for that excellent question. And I'll give you an example of something, picking up on David's point. And I hope everybody understands what he means by externalizing of course. For example, you can make the case that producing electricity from coal is relatively cheap. That's true. But when you say that, you're ignoring the fact that those carbon emissions are wreaking havoc on the planet and causing illness, which have enormous costs, which included in the cost equation do not make coal all that expensive. I will tell you, nuclear power, another example. Right now, there is federal legislation which says that if, God forbid, in this country we ever have a Japanese-style nuclear meltdown, it will be the taxpayers, after the nuclear industry pays a certain amount of the damage, it is the taxpayers who are going to pay the rest of the cost because there's no insurance company or Wall Street company that would provide insurance for nuclear power because it is so risky. And if they had to go to the private sector and not the taxpayers of this country to get the insurance they would need if, God forbid, there was ever a $100 billion disaster in America, nuclear power would not be quite so inexpensive either. So David makes a very profound point that when you look at the cost of something, it is more complicated than the price tag. You got to look at the damage that the product may be causing in terms of our environment or in terms of our health. Mm-hmm. So that's a great question, David. Thank you.
Okay, and Manuel in Grays Lake, Illinois. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Senator Sanders, is this going to be the year that you and Senator Sherrod Brown start pushing back hard against free trade and reactivate our American policy of tariffs so we can revitalize manufacturing? Because without this wealth creation of manufacturing, the $2 trillion or so we're going to need for infrastructure is never going to happen.
Manuel, you make a great point, and I can't speak for Sherrod Brown. Sherrod is a great senator from Ohio. He and I have worked on this issue together for a very long time. We worked on it when we were in the House. We're working on it now in the Senate. You are not going to have a strong economy and a strong middle class when Americans go to the stores and every product they make, or most of the products they make, are made in China or elsewhere. So Manuel is exactly right. We have to rebuild our manufacturing sector. We have to demand that corporate America invest in this country, creates jobs in this country, that we produce products in this country, and that is an issue that is very important to both Sherrod Brown and myself. And yes, we're going to work as hard as we can to move in that direction. The opposition, by the way, Manuel, will be just enormously powerful. You got all of the Chamber of Commerce, all the big money guys who like the idea of being able to shut down in America and go abroad, hire people at low wages and bring their products back into America. But in my view, our trade policy has failed. We've lost over 50,000 factories in the last 10 years. Wages have gone down. So we need to rebuild our manufacturing sector, and we've got to work with people all over this country to make that happen.
Elda in West Hurley, New York. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Senator Sanders, you're my favorite person and speaker for the country. I wanted to bring you back to Obamacare. Basically, I'm just wondering why Obamacare isn't regulating the amounts of money that doctors and hospitals and insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies get paid. I mean, pharmaceutical companies make so much money off of their business because they advertise these very dangerous drugs on TV. Doctors totally cost unbelievable amounts of money, and the insurance companies are in the middle there playing that game. So if you have insurance, it's a free world. Go to this specialist, go to that specialist.
Elda, we have just a little less than 2 minutes left in the hour.
Right.
So
well,
can we toss this to Bernie now to answer?
Elda asks a great question, and the answer is what Elda is really talking about is the need for the United States to do what other countries, every other major country has done, and pass a national health care program. A, guaranteeing health care to all people as a right, and B, once you do that, you can control costs in a way that you can't with our largely dysfunctional system. In terms of the pharmaceutical industry, Elda, let me tell you something you may not, want to hear, but it's certainly true, is that I think in order to get Obamacare passed, the Democrats made a deal with the drug companies, so that we really have not been able to bring forward the kind of pharmaceutical industry reform that we need. What everybody should be aware of is in the United States, we pay by far the highest prices in the world for brand name prescription drugs. That's just the simple fact. When I was in the House, I took a number of people from Vermont over the Canadian border, and they were just shocked that they were able to purchase the same product, the same drug, a breast cancer drug manufactured in America. They bought it for 1/10 the price in Canada. So we have got a lot of work on our hands to make create a healthcare system guaranteeing healthcare to all and do it in a cost-effective way, including lowering drug prices.
Senator Sanders, thanks so much. Bernie, thanks so much for being with us this week.
All right, happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Thanks. And you too, and your family. We'll be back.